Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
Did you hear the one about the Jewish man, the son of a rabbi, who got expelled from the Labour Party for anti-Zionism?
Tony Greenstein has been opposing Israeli government since Golda Meir. He didn't start off that way. He was brought up a Zionist.
I first clashed with Tony Greenstein almost 40 years ago now, and I dare say we'd clash again, except we're both now expelled from the Labour Party. Me over the Iraq War, he over the ongoing war between Labour supporters of Israel and their opponents. And I'm glad to say the freshly expelled Tony Greenstein joins me now on the Sputnik. Welcome, Tony.
George.
First of all, let's explain to the viewers how you came as a Jewish man, son of a rabbi, to be expelled effectively for anti-Semitism.
Well, anti-Semitism is the main accusation made against us by supporters of Israel. That's the only thing they have, because how else do you defend what Israel does in the West Bank, in the Negev, in the demolition of homes, etc.? They call you anti-Semitic. And one of the ironies of what's happening in the Labour Party is that so many people who are being expelled or suspended are themselves Jewish.
Yeah.
Jewish anti-Zionists are the main target. It's got nothing to do with anti-Semitism, of course.
Well, of course, as a very famous rabbi once said, that which is hateful to you, do not do unto others.
Yes, Rabbi
he said
Hillel.
that. Yeah, he said that's the whole Torah. So, in a way, I'm guessing you feel that you, above all, have a duty to speak out against something that is being done falsely attributed to your religion.
Yes, indeed. I mean, Israel calls itself a Jewish state. Mm-hmm. It says it speaks on behalf of every Jew. So when it imprisons Ached Tamimi, the 16-year-old girl on the West Bank, for being a threat to armed soldiers, or when it demolishes villages in the Negev in order to build Jewish towns on top of them, or all the host of apartheid laws, it does that in the name not of its own Jewish citizens, but in the name of every Jewish person throughout the world. That's what it means as a Jewish state. So it's incumbent upon Jews, wherever they are, to speak out and say, not in my name.
So when you were sitting there in front of the panel and they gave you the verdict, did they sit there with a serious, straight face? Or do you think that deep inside them they know they're wrong, but they just have to keep up this?
These are cynical apparatchiks. They don't believe in anything. They hate the left. They hate anyone who's anti-imperialist, and they would hate anti-Zionists. And for them, anti-Semitism is a weapon to be used against their opponents. They're totally cynical. I mean,
it is cynical, though, because nobody could, as Gayatri said, with a straight face, look at you with your name, your antecedents, and accuse you of being an anti-Semite.
No, it's a nonsense. I mean, I'm the only person who's written a book on fighting fascism and anti-Semitism in Brighton and the South Coast. I mean, I've been involved in anti-fascist activity for 30, 40 years. These people, I mean, they said it was abusive to call anyone scum, but we always used to call the fascist scum. That was our slogan. The idea that it's somehow abusive is absurd, but they will pick
quite
up
a lot
on
of abuse in political discourse.
Absolutely, yes, and I've taken more than most, I think.
Indeed. And Aaron Bevan described the Conservatives as lower than men.
Well, that's right. I mean, if he had been around today, he would have been out on his ear.
Mind you, he was several times expelled, just like you and me.
Absolutely.
Now, it didn't start off this way. As I said in the introduction, I've known you for a very long time. You've always been a fighter against what you think and I think are crimes by Israel. But you didn't start off that way. Tell us, what changed you?
Well, I was brought up, I was, as you say, the son of a Jewish rabbi, and I went to a Jewish school in Liverpool, the King David. And one day they did a debate Israel, Zionism, right or wrong, and no one else would defend the Palestinians, so I took on the task as a devil's advocate. But in the process of researching what I was doing, the debate, I became convinced that Israel and Zionism was historically wrong. And then I went on one of these kind of birthright tours of Israel.
Because according to Israel, you have a right by virtue of your Jewishness to actually go and live in Israel.
Well, no, it's more than that. According to the Zionists, Israel is my real home. I don't belong really here. That's why Zionism and anti-Semitism agree with each other, that Jews don't belong outside of Israel. So I went to Israel, it was in 1969, just after the conquest, and already you could see the beginnings of the colonialism taking root. That was under, of course, a Labour government, the Israeli Labour Party, not Likud as it became. So, yeah.
Well, Mr. Netanyahu appears to be in quite serious legal trouble. Is what comes after him likely to be better, or could it even conceivably be worse?
It will probably be worse. The far right in Israel is growing. The Israeli Labour Party, which is really not much better, is now, what, a tenth of the vote it will get? Meretz, is the left Zionist party, is a fragment of what it used to be. So, no, it's getting worse. And Netanyahu follows Ehud Olmert, the previous prime minister. He went to jail. Moshe Katsav, he also went to jail for rape.
He was the president.
He was the president, yes. In fact, there's barely been a prime minister who hasn't been investigated for corruption.
Well, that's to Israel's credit. Whatever else we think about Israel, it doesn't mess about with corrupt Israeli politicians. It puts them in prison at a rate that no other country in the world does.
Does, except that Netanyahu has appointed the Attorney General, and a massive pressure is on him not to go ahead with the prosecution. I mean, Netanyahu is fighting. He's going to be staying in office even if he is prosecuted. So, I mean, that is outrageous. It's like Silvio Berlusconi, who passed laws to stop himself being prosecuted. And Netanyahu has actually tried that.
And Berlusconi might well be back quite soon in the driving seat in Italy. Let's go back to the Labour Party then. We have a situation, don't we, that in the run-up to Jeremy Corbyn's election, in the run-up even more to his re-election, the coup against Corbyn, huge numbers, nobody knows how many, but it certainly runs into thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people were expelled, excluded, suspended. And that's leaving aside people like me that were expelled in 2003 over the Iraq War.
These are mostly new supporters that joined the party because of Jeremy.
The former, yes. I mean, this must be the biggest party in Britain, the expelled members of the Labour Party.
It could be that. I mean, they're auto-excluding people, so they don't even have a hearing. They're just automatically expelled, as Moshe Machler was, an Israeli anti-Zionist. I mean, someone else who is Jewish. So I was a registered supporter. My vote, I voted for Corbyn in 2015. My vote, my ballot paper, was taken out of the ballot box electronically. And told I was no longer a registered supporter, but I joined, and somehow it slipped through the net. But yes, thousands have been suspended and expelled, and the reason is quite clear. The civil service under Ian McNicol is fighting back hard.
He's the General Secretary.
He is the General Secretary, and he's fighting back hard against the left, and that's what they're doing. This whole anti-Semitism nonsense actually started with Jeremy Corbyn. They accused him of being associated with Holocaust deniers. But once he became elected, they turned their fire on Gerald Kaufman and other people, and I was suspended in March 2016. But I wish that Jeremy Corbyn had called it out from the beginning. He would have saved himself a lot of trouble. If he'd said, yes, I condemn anti-Semitism where it exists, and it barely exists, but I also condemn those who misuse and abuse anti-Semitism against people who are not anti-Semitic.
Well, anti-Semitism does exist, and it is, of course, historically speaking, the most toxic of all forms of racism, industrially, systematically seeking to literally annihilate from the face of the earth an entire category of people. But I must say, in 36 years membership of the Labour Party and in the 15 years since I was expelled, I genuinely have not met any member of the Labour Party who could be described as anti-Semitic. It's
No.
almost a contradiction in terms. Why would you be Labour if
course
you
it
were
is.
anti-Semitic?
Of course it is.
There is no anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. It's a myth. At best, you'll get people who will make inappropriate remarks. It's not a real phenomenon. At best, people make inappropriate remarks as a reaction to what Israel does in the name of Jewish people. I mean, that's all it is. But of course, then they are jumped upon from on high and suspended for those remarks. But they're innocuous. They're not anti-Semitic in any real sense at all.
Basically, the analogy is between Israel and the Jewish faith, and Saudi Arabia speaking up for the Islamic faith, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to ask that. If it's anti-Semitic to attack Israel, is it Islamophobic to attack Saudi Arabia?
Well, that is the logical argument, isn't it? How can it be racist to ever attack a state? It can't be. But the Zionists say, well, Israel's only being attacked because it's Jewish, which is a nonsense. People attack Israel or criticise Zionism because of what it does and what it stands for or what it means.
Well, I attack Saudi Arabia every day of the week. Now, these people, these cynics who expelled you, and the cynics who earlier expelled me, one of whom, by the way, I used to stand on a picket line at Wapping every Saturday night with. We were kicked by the same police horse, but he still expelled me. How's that for cynicism?
Well, indeed, yeah.
They're cynics, yes, but Jeremy Corbyn isn't a cynic. How can he stand by whilst someone like you, and more recently, someone like me, are accused of anti-Semitism when he knows that it was an unjust accusation against him, and he also knows it's an unjust accusation against you and against me.
And Ken Livingstone, of
and
course.
Ken Livingstone, for that matter.
Well, I don't wish to excuse anything that Jeremy Corbyn has done. He's become under massive pressure, and he's wilted, and he's bowed before that pressure, and he's wanted a quiet life. But in fact, he's got anything but a quiet life, because the more people you feed to the false anti-Semitism machine, the more people it wants to devour. So it's actually counterproductive. If Jeremy had stood out from the beginning and said there is no anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, or it's trivial at best, compared to the Islamophobia, the hostility to Roma people, and so on, then I think he would have shot them, as it were. Yes, he would have shot the goose, as it were.
If I had time, I'd ask you if you'd ever met a Czech agent in the House of Commons, but there's no time, alas, for that. Tony Greenstein, thanks for joining us
Thank
on the
you, George.
Sputnik.